update on brackets. So what we're going to be doing is doing an upper and a lower part to the bracket. So the upper part, the smaller ones, they actually fit onto the actual roof rack itself. So if I take one of those, so this will, a little bit sharp at the moment, that will fit onto the roof rack itself. And then the lower portion of it, thought there wasn't enough then, the lower portion of it will sit like that onto the actual bed itself. So that will sit basically along those lines. So what I've done, I've made these 5 centimeters wide rather than 6. And what we're going to be doing is trimming these down into this trapezoid shape. So the point is, so this will actually sit on the outside of the outside of the bracket, of the lower bracket, but just for ease of showing how this is going to work. What this will do is, because the shape of the roof is a curve, the front brackets and the rear brackets sit higher than the middle bracket. So what this allows for is we will put a slot in the lower bracket here, and there'll be 2 bolt holes in the upper part of the bracket, which means we can then move and arrange this to fit and to take up that space, that difference in space. Now also, because there's actually a slight curvature, if I had to do some extreme examples here. So let's say, for argument's sake, this is the side of the car. The back bracket is going to be tipping down very slightly like that. The front bracket's tipping down very slightly like that. Okay, now there's nothing close to that, but that's essentially what it's going to be doing. So by having these as 50mm wide, and the space at the top is, cutting it down to, this is 60mm wide, this has also got the opportunity, we'll clamp it all into position and we'll level it all up, and then this has also got a bit of room to take up that change in angle as well, without it being sticking over the edge along those lines. So I gave myself a bit more leeway. I'll curve off all the edges, make it all nice and smooth. So this can be the right height and then the right kind of angle. So let's say, for example, it needs to be like that. And then the middle one completely down, and the end one like that. Just as a kind of idea. So that's the plan. It might very well be that the middle one is too tall completely. We may not want the middle to be that high at all. I think the difference is about 30 or 40mm. So let's just say we're looking at, let's imagine there wasn't so much of a curvature. We're going to be looking at something along the lines of like that, roughly speaking. I think that's what we're going to be looking at. So that's fine. What I don't want is the front of the actual rack, and well, the whole of the rack to be too high up in total, but I do want to be able to open up the sunroof. Not that I've actually ever opened up the sunroof on the Range Rover, because I'm terrified it's not going to close, and it's been permanently raining recently. So that's that. So the next thing to do will be to cut all these trapezoid shapes. So I've got all 6. We're going to cut them all down, smooth off all the edges. I'll flat wheel them all to make them nice and smooth. We'll get the slots cut in them, which I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do yet. I'm probably going to use the router, but I'm just going to drill all the way down and then route out the remaining aluminium on each of these, so that these are always vertical. And then it will be the bolt holes on these will take up that angle change. So we'll get these drilled out. The top is drilled out, and these will attach to the underside of the actual bed of the rack, and get that, so into the rack, and then I'll clamp that to that as and when we put the rack onto the actual car itself, so we can work out where it all needs to go. Once it's all clamped in place, I can then draw through the slot exactly where the slot marks would be on here, and then just drill 2 holes, 2/3 and a third, 2/3 of the way up, so a third of the way up, sorry, and a third of the way down, to allow for a bit of movement in future. And that should be the brackets. So once they're all made up, we're then gonna make sure it's all nice and smooth, and then we're gonna either paint them in black, or we're gonna Raptor bed liner them. We've got a load of Raptor bed liner that we're waiting to use on the car for other things as well. But that being a 2K paint means when you press the bottom of the can, you've only got a certain amount of time to use up all of the paint. So unless we're ready to use the rest of the paint, I may not end up using it on these brackets. I might just use an etch primer and a decent hammerite paint or something along those lines. So that's the brackets at the moment, and I'll follow up once we've cut all the trapezoid shapes out as well. Okay, so a quick update on what we're doing. The bottom brackets have all now been cut. So they've all been cut and shaped to size. So they are all these trapezoid size, 60mm on the top, 100mm on the bottom. All sanded off nicely, and each of the top brackets have been drilled out to basically match the 30mm gap between the two, ready for T-nuts, which I haven't got, which I've just ordered from AliExpress. So I can't go much further with that. However, with the bracket, I've mocked up the first one. So this is the first bracket, what it's going to look like. I haven't yet decided whether I want the top bracket to sit inside or outside of this. I think inside, actually, because I think this shape is just nicer than having that on the outside. So this is probably what I'm going to do, is have this on the inside. But it sits particularly nicely. We've got two of the sliding unistrut nuts in there. So that's these little things. These things here. So there's two of those, one there and one there, and they are 50mm apart. So nicely spaced, and that is dead strong. It is surprisingly strong, actually. I mean, just nip them up and there is no moving that. So next it will be whether in fact I actually do a slot, whether I just get it right and drill, get it all into the right place, fit it up as much as possible, make it as even as possible at the top here, and then just drill straight through here. Two holes, straight through, and nut and bolt it. Because arguably I'm not going to need to adjust it. Once I've got it right, I'll be fine. So that's probably what I'm going to do. But obviously I can't really do a great deal more other than just repeat this until I get Frank back. Because I can't fit him on there and check to see how it looks. So until then, I'll crack on with the other brackets. So a quick update to what we're going to do with regards to the brackets. So as it stands at the moment, as you all have seen from an earlier video, the bracket itself, because of the curvature of the car roof, the bracket is not sitting vertical, and I didn't expect it to, actually. I thought this might happen. So they're actually just tipping out ever so slightly like that, but it's enough that by the time you tighten everything up, it's going to put stresses and strains on the track at the bottom. It'll probably start pulling the track up off the bottom and all that kind of stuff. So this stuff doesn't like bending, I need to kind of counteract that somehow. I looked at various different things I could possibly do to kind of counter it. At what point do I want to kind of put something in to wedge that difference? So the track itself has got to stay on the roof of the car flat to the roof itself. So the track is going to stay curved. The unistrut nuts will carry on also being straight as they go through. They will also be straight. So they will also be flat to the roof. So they're going to be slightly off like that. So we've got to make sure that when this thing wants to tilt over here, we find something to lift this up, because then the rest will follow and the rest will remain straight. So what I'm doing, I've got some of these door or window wedges, which are basically exactly the right length, which is rather handy. Cutting them in half, keeping the actual structure, like an outer structure he's got there. You can see that on the actual piece, and discarding this piece here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to see whether it will fit and it will provide enough of the enough of a wedge. I'm going to tape that to the bottom of one of these brackets for the time being, and we're going to put it onto the roof a bit later, so it will sit like that. So in comparison, try and do this one-handed. That's the difference in angle. Just about to see there. So there's enough of an angle there. That is roughly speaking about what I need to bring it in by. So what I'll do, I'll double check it to make sure that's okay. And obviously I've got to paint these still yet, so there's no point me bonding anything to this just yet. But if that works okay and it is the right height, then I'll cut another 5 of these. I've got a whole load knocking about from a window project. And I will basically bond these or glue these to the bottom of the bracket itself, rather than to the track, because to the track then I've got no way of moving the brackets at all. So I'll bond this to the bracket, bond to the bracket, and that will give it enough of a wedge. Now obviously what I've got to bear in mind is that when this then tilts outwards, back in slightly, the bolt, I'll try and do this as an extreme kind of example. So when this sits, are you going to stay there for me? So when this tilts back in, the bolt is still going to want to be at that angle. Now, obviously I don't really want to start bolting in at that angle too much. So one thing is I'm probably going to have to make these holes slightly bigger. So I'm going to have to drill out probably another 1/2 mil. They're currently 8mm, so I'm probably going to have to do an 8.5. I've got 8.5 drill bit. That will allow the bolt to be essentially crooked. And then I'm going to get some beveled square washers that are wedge shape. Sorry, beveled wedge shape square washers. So that will provide a flat mating surface between the head of the bolt and basically the surface going down. So this will then sit quite happily on there with a wedge out and wedge pushing out to take up that slack basically. So then everything is straight. If that works okay, I will likely use a metal glue and glue those washers on, so they're permanent. They may as well be. And then I'll take them all off, clean everything up, and then paint everything. Because we're kind of running out of time, I am going to be etch priming and just satin blacking. I've got tons of this stuff knocking about from other projects, so I'm just going to satin black all of the brackets, etch prime them first and get that done. I'm not going to use the Raptor liner just yet, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm not too fussed at the moment. As long as they're black, you won't notice them so much. They stick out like a sore thumb at the moment. Other than that, that should work fine. So once I've got one set up and tested to make sure that's the right angle, I'll then start cutting the rest of these, get them ready, and then I will paint everything. And then we've got to drill the holes in between the two. I've just finished numbering them actually, so the other thing we're doing is each of the brackets, I'm going to have all of these will be on the deck. On the tracks. So all 6 of those will be on the tracks. These will be mounted on the roof rack itself, and then when we marry it up, I'll clamp them in position, and then we'll drill through basically where the holes need to be. And then obviously I don't really want to separate these two when I go to paint them and all that kind of stuff, otherwise they may not match up. Well, obviously they're different heights in different areas. So I've numbered them. I happen to have a numbering set, so I've numbered them all, ready to go, ready to be matched up with their other brackets, and that'll stop them getting messed up. So fingers crossed that's okay, and we'll have to see how that goes. So I haven't put the brackets on the top and measured it with the sunroof up. I've realised that in fact these were way too tall. So this is how tall they were. So I've taken off about 50 mil, I think it is. Yeah, I've taken off about 45, 50 mil off that to make these shorter. And we're going to eventually probably end up using the top brackets that way around instead, because they're already kind of the right size. So we put the sunroof up on tilt and realised that these sat really, really high above it, and there's just no need. So the shark fin, the aerial, which I think is the digital TV aerial or the whatever aerial it is, that's also low. That's about the same height as the tilt on the sunroof when it comes up, and it was way, way above it. So these are all now chopped, all ready to go. I just need to file them down, I'm not going to do any pre-drilling yet, or am I going to do pre-drilling? I can't remember. I might do some pre-drilling, but then I'm going to basically paint them. And I'm going to etch them all, clean them all up and paint them. Get them ready because it's raining outside now, so I can't do anything more. Okay, these are all trimmed down now. All trimmed down, all cleaned, alcohol cleaned. It's getting, what have I used? Isopropyl alcohol. Ready for paint. They've all been filed off, so there's nice, all smooth edges and all that kind of stuff. I decided not pre-drill anything because I just genuinely don't know where the hole's going to go just yet. So it's too wet today to do anything outside, and I can't actually try even dry fit the rack today because it's raining and I haven't got the T-nuts. So I'm going to take advantage of not being able to go outside. I'm going to get these all etched up and try and paint these all today, and then give them a good old few coats, and then it'll be a few days before it actually goes onto the Range Rover, and it'll be nice and cured by then. All the brackets are nice etch primed up now. Still see the punch numbers through them, thankfully. There's a couple of coats of etch on that, so that should be pretty good. I'm going to now go for, it's pretty cold today, so it's not a great day for painting. Although I'm going to try and do a couple of coats of black satin now and see how that comes out. Okay, we're a couple of coats in. Pretty happy with them, to be fair. All covering quite nicely. But it is really a bit too chilly for this today. So once these are flashed off, I'm going to take them inside and hide them on a radiator where drag can't see them. Hopefully this shouldn't stink the house out as they dry off. And then tomorrow, once they've hardened off, I'm going to give them another coat, probably another couple of coats actually. And then we should better start assembling some bits. So the feet have just turned up, which I'm going to be using to basically infill these sections on the bracket feet. I can do this one-handed. So I'm going to cut that bit out. Ready, go. There we go, look at that, magic. So these are little tiny rubber feet, almost like neoprene feet, so they should last pretty well. So they're all about the right size to go in when you cut them in half. So I'm going to cut them all in half, well, enough of them in half, to basically fill in each of those, and they should sit just outside of that infill. Oh, just outside of that infill, so they should just grip. But we'll see how that goes. All the feet are on. Still got a few left, which is great. So I did have to double up because it sat just a bit too squishy down and the plastic kind of hit. So I've doubled them up. So the upside is the brackets are going to sit probably a bit too far inwards. Oh, you can see that, sit too far inwards. But when pressure is put on the bracket, it will squidge these down a bit more, and it will grip these even more to the track of the actual roof rack itself. So I'm just going to tidy up these edges a little bit. I've got some double-sided tape left over from doing the solar panel, and then these will go on to these nicely painted brackets when they dry. So we've done our last coat of satin on the brackets, and we've just marked up the tops, well, which are now the tops. Obviously these were going to be the tops. Marked up the tops using a little template was made, literally just a slip of paper. That's the right size, and we've marked out exactly so the holes will be drilled in the right place. Punched them all, ready to go, and we'll drill all these out now for an M8 bolt, so 8mm bolt, to go through all of those. Then these will be almost ready. I've got some rubber matting that's going to be coming in. I think I've got enough that I'm going to do all the top surfaces with a sheet of rubber, it's like 1mm thick rubber, and also the ends as well. So when it actually touches the other side, again, it doesn't help with vibration, but more actually it helps with slipping. So it doesn't scratch the paint as well when we sort of assembling things. So that's on its way. That should be here early next week, which is probably when we'll pick up this video. A quick update on the brackets. The rubber sheeting's just turned up, self-adhesive rubber sheeting, 1mm thick, and I've coated the upper brackets. So both the end that actually going to touch the bottom bracket and the top that's actually going to touch the extrusion of the bed itself. You can actually still see the numbers through, which is rather handy. 1, 5, yeah, so I can still see those, I can match them up. It's already pre-drilled for the top. So the only thing that will be left to do will be we'll be drilling top and bottom here once we've got them clamped together on the bracket. So these are all completely ready now, which is wonderful. And then we just got to wait for a set of bolts to come in. I've had to order some 22mm bolts because the ones I've got are too short with the additional angle on the lower bracket. So when they show up, as well as the T-nuts, we can go for a fit.